Welcome to Design Review, the podcast of engineering your life. I'm Robert Haines, and today with me is Lord Astor West. She goes by Astor, and she's the founder and CEO of RadHash. It's an AI native operating system. I'm going to learn a lot about this in this conversation because we're going to be talking about that. But I met Astor online in LinkedIn, and I've been interacting through comments and DMs on occasion. And what I'll say is that she has really stood out to me as the kind of human I want to connect with. Turns out that she lives maybe 5 miles from me, which is pretty hilarious because we've never met. But either way, I've been looking forward to meeting you for quite a while. Welcome to Design Review.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So that, because I did a very inelegant introduction of you, why don't you kind of give, and if you want to do it, feral raccoon style, I give you full encouragement to do so. Why don't you give a little bit of an introduction of yourself that's better than what I did?
Well, from time to time, I do call myself in my LinkedIn headline the feral technology prophet, because I think over the years, I've just wildly developed and built technologies that were usually way too far ahead of their time to monetize, but somehow was able to get them in there and build a really great business. So I built my company. Well, I started in my early 20s, right after the dot-com bust. And what I think people don't understand about the dot-com bust is that a lot of people made a lot of really great money. They went up and down really fast. But the best time to be in tech was after. That's when everything happened. The innovation, the growth, the the ability to have this tool and to be able to connect with anyone worldwide and to be able to build these technologies into your business. And that's what hooked me. I started out at a startup. I talked my way into this startup as a business development leader and inevitably took up the mantle for the entire startup. The founders really kind of checked out. I don't know what they were doing or why they were even building a startup, but what they were doing wasn't working. And to get the people in and to build this community, I built software because the thing that they wanted wasn't the actual thing that we were doing. And if I were smart, not that I'm smart now, because I'm sure there's tons of opportunities that I'm missing. But back then, if I had the experience that I had now, we would have had an incredible product. But it was the first product that I built, and it was the first experience that I had in startup land. And the startup didn't work. The founders got in a fight. They went their own way. They both bought separate businesses, and I was pretty much left to my devices. And it was, I was thinking, what am I going to do with myself? Because I have tasted entrepreneurship now, and I know that this is for me. This is my path. This is the only thing that I'm ever going to do in my life. I knew it then. It was like meeting your soulmate. It was my soulmate, and we were going to live happily ever after. So I thought to myself, I've never started a company before. I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. I'm going to go work for somebody who's doing something similar or that I like, that I can kind of stretch my legs and learn some things. I worked there for 2 months. I quit on a Friday, and I started a company on Monday. And the first thing that I did was I filled out all my LLC papers, and who knows if I did them right or not. I guess I did, because 23 years later, my DevCo is still running. It's still really, really cool. It's still really rad. And it is the technology hub that built everything that's RadHash today. In fact, RadHash is actually the third of the technologies of its kind that we built since inception. And what makes it different is that I took everything that I learned about building custom software, because basically it's all the same. It's all the same. You go into a company, you find out, where the friction is, where they need operational support, how you can automate and make their life a lot better, help them build and grow with the technology that you're hopefully building the right thing. Mm-hmm. And so over the years, you find out that, you're building the same stuff over and over again. So we started building libraries and components and modules and these frameworks and things that we would just plug things into, and we would be able to go into a company, assess what was going on, and then build this technology for them.
Cool. Well, we're going to get to go into the detail of what RadHash is all about as we go through the program. And I love this story and the focus on, I think you used the word inventor for yourself before, and I love that that's where you're coming from in the realm of creation. And 2 months at a company to say, okay, and then that's enough, and I'm gonna move on and create my own thing. And that was 23 years ago.
Yeah, we turned 23 this year.
And so the now RadHash is how I know you, but that's not the name of the company.
RadHash is its own entity. Okay. So our technology allows us to develop full stack, full feature platforms in 90 days or less. And it's actually the fourth solution that's built on our stack. And the reason why we built it is because when we moved from custom tech to building products, which was the transition that we made around 2016, we started to figure out that we had fallen into the startup ecosystem, which is a completely different animal that exists, but it's kind of like going through like the wardrobe and finding this whole new land.
Oh yeah.
It's totally wild. But there were so many issues in it that it was really shocking. And the traditions and the conditioning and the cadence of what the startup ecosystem puts founders through, which isn't necessarily always in their best interest. See, I come from building sustainable tech. When I build you something, I want it to last for the next 10 years. I want us to be able to update it as we need to without having to tear the whole system down and rebuild it. Yeah, because that's the biggest issue. The biggest issue with a company and a startup isn't speed, isn't product market fit. It isn't any of those things. It's the transition or the gap between the software you have and the software you need. And that's the gap that kills everything. It's either you get it right and you create something that's flexible, or you're going to have a really tough time. And that's what startups are conditioned to do. And so we started seeing this over and over. And, we knew that the narrative wasn't beneficial to startup founders. And we said, okay, well, we have this technology. We have absolutely no desire to work with founders. So what do? We want to build fast. We want to do something that, we're really good at. We have a process that's proven. We've done it over and over again, and we have our technology. But there's a massive need here. And that need is to be able to have an idea, bring it to market as a software product, and then to be able to scale that. Not have an idea, hackathon, vibe code your brain out.
Yeah.
Maybe get a few people on it, and then when you get a little bit of traction, have to rebuild it. When you're supposed to be growing, now you're actually coming back to starting, your starting point.
And there's a whole, we could probably build the entire discussion just around that point. And I think that'd be really, really worthwhile, because like I have a lot of experience in innovation and in product development. And in my case, I was like a mechanical engineer that turned systems. So I ended up involved in mechanical and electrical and software. They all were essential. And I'm sure that you're familiar with the I call it a theology around the lean startup, where you build a minimum viable product and you get feedback on it. And while there's a lot of sense in that, it can be tempting. You mentioned vibe coding. It can be tempting to just like hack something together that's like, duct tape and cardboard and get feedback on that. But then when it's time to make something real, it's an interesting balance. Um, and I think that's part of what's got my attention for what you're building and what you're doing with RadHash, is because it would seem that doing something quickly to get feedback really makes sure you're doing the right thing, but doing something in a way that's sustainable and buildable and modular, if that's what's called for, that could end up taking so much time that you miss the window. But it seems like the area that you're focused on is that intersection of how do you have the velocity such that you can get feedback while still building something that can actually grow and be releasable, supportable, and improved. So am I understanding that's kind of the niche? We've already jumped into the why before I even asked the word why, but that's awesome. So am I understanding that properly?
Yeah, I mean, I love the concepts of lean, and we take it, I think, a step in another direction. We build atomically. If you have the same components that you need that are used over and over and over again, which they are,
Yeah.
then how can you create the system that allows you or empowers you to be able to have those components in a way that you can use them as a non-technical person to be able to put those things together and get your product out in a way that it can be used, that you can be tested. But when you need to change it, you're not tearing down, you're not rebuilding, you're not migrating, you're building up on that, and you're reestablishing that connection with your customers. And this is something that, especially with AI, because our system doesn't require AI to be able to build with it. The automation is built under the hood, it's built behind the scenes. That's the way that it was built, because you can't have a truly autonomous system and layer in AI if you don't already have that design pattern or that framework that's ready for it. This is an issue that a lot of companies are starting to figure out right now, is that you can't just fire a bunch of people who have that inherent knowledge, that are basically the glue that's holding your disparate systems together with what's in their brain, and layer on AI and expect the AI to be able to perform at the same level as us humans. There's a very unintelligent way that companies are trying to apply intelligence to their systems.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. There's a level of what I'll just use. I translate a lot of things into engineering, so there's a lot of like systems engineering that gets missing when all you have is the individual bits of information. They may even be outstanding. They may be excellent. I've seen some good things come out of use of AI, but the over reliance on it is lacking a level of guidance that can really take you astray. So something had you go for. So when you first built this organization, you weren't looking at founders. Were you looking at building individual like apps and tools and applications for the market itself?
What we did is we developed a distributed operating system framework with over 100 different tools, components, and workflows that we could put together. That our plan was to become a venture tech company, discover opportunities to rebuild legacy software and legacy industries.
Okay.
And we would turn and burn these startups and have, I wouldn't necessarily call it a venture builder, because we're more of venture tech. We want to build things, bring them in really quickly. And RadHash is actually a part of that. So before RadHash was created, we created a platform that makes it possible for you to build UI, upload, and create apps, and publish them to the Azure cloud. And with that deployment and that publishing, we made it agnostic. So we can basically plug in any cloud and be able to develop those resources and build those systems in the cloud by using code. So it's infrastructure with code, and it builds those systems for you.
So, I mean, I'm hell with metaphors. So you've kind of like created this erector set
Yeah.
world, um, that and I think your word here is startup verse. But you've created a world of tools, which I suppose, in a way, from my experience, is what in large companies, software departments try to do,
Right.
on their own. But you've created this world of tools and structure and the OS around it that allows any given company to come in. Do they license it? Are you consultants? What's the world? But you've created an entire, well, toolbox is not adequately stating it, but I'll use that word.
It's a universe of components.
Yeah, it's beyond the tools. It's the tools and the materials and the structure and subsystems as well, that somebody can come in and like put together and then use for their own app, their own. Then do they continue licensing that from you when they do that? Well, I guess walk me through, like, what would be the workflow if somebody's going to come and work with you guys. Say I'm a startup, and obviously software is part or all of what I'm interested in doing. And I approach you. What are the main steps that are involved in this process?
Okay. Have you ever gone to, I don't know if you're Mac or PC. I'm assuming PC.
I dabbled in Mac and I'm now in PC.
Okay. So have you ever ventured out to get a download of Windows?
Yeah.
It, yeah, and you downloaded it, click some buttons, put in some personal information. Maybe you put in your Microsoft credentials so that it can connect to your Office 365 in the cloud if you have that, or your Microsoft space. It's the same process. So when you come to Red Hash and you want to deploy a stack, we call them hashes. When you want to deploy, it ships with 95% of the infrastructure that you need to build and run your software. So it's going to put that into your private cloud. So we're assuming that you have a cloud.
Yeah.
We're assuming that you're coming here because you want to build a software company.
Yeah.
And if you have not set up your cloud, then you can choose one that you can set up, because it basically just sets you up with an organization within Microsoft or AWS or Google. And we actually have a investor that came in through our crowd fund. They're called Cloud Underground, and they make it possible for you to be able to put this on your desktop. So we're going to be shipping with them. They have 10,000 users, and it will be a operating system that ships with that product that gives you something that you can instantaneously start building your apps, publishing them, and then monetizing them. So the way that it works is you come to our website, you want to launch a hash, you put in some of your personal information, the credentials that you need to be able to deploy to your cloud, and then it does it, deploys your resources that you need to run the OS initially, connects to us because we manage the underlying infrastructure, patches, updates, security, all that good stuff that happens in your infrastructure layer. And then you have a marketplace of apps that you can pull from. So if I want to build an app, I'm going to go in and I'm going to download the Cluster UX app. And I can do anything from build and set up a simple web page, which basically allows me to point and click or prompt a user interface, choose where I want that to go. So publish it to the cloud. It creates an app service, connects with my database, sets up a database for me. And it's all containerized in a container. So I can run multiple containers with all different types of app services, whether it be a website or a web app, or if I want to create access to a SaaS application. And if I do that, I can tenant my solution. I can divide it by roles. I can give access to certain pieces, and I can build apps and publish them to my app store and give people access to them. So it's really about, if I were to go into the world and say I want to create a piece of custom software, it takes you through the same steps, only those steps have been automated. The same steps that if I were to come and build that piece of custom software for you, I would put these systems in place for you. I would build this code for you. I would create these projects, these features, and I would make them accessible to whomever it is that you need to have access in the way that you need to have them. All of that would be done under the hood. You would have no way to do it. But with Red Hash, we've taken all of that and we've brought it to a user interface where you as the individual can decide how you want to set up your company as a software company. So it follows my personal and my team's way of building custom software. We just made it so that you can use it.
I love how that's going. I have a number of models. I'm not a software engineer. I have written software. So I know enough to be a little dangerous. But I love that you've created an ecosystem that people can then, make use of. You've done a lot of the grunt work. You've built the libraries of all kinds, and the rules and the structure so that somebody can come in and be effective. And like you said like 90 days, you can go from ground zero and requirements document through to a working deployable app. And that seems to have answered an implicit question about, okay, so what's the need out there that has Red Hash be the answer? And I think what you've addressed is like, there's especially startups which don't have large teams. They may have a lot of expertise or they may have, higher level people. And they need to prove what they're up to, but they don't want to waste time having proven it between then and actually being able to make their MVP, and then learn from that in the world. And if they're seeking that, then they find you. So I want to talk now, like, let's up level a bit, because I could geek out about your process and your tools probably the entire time.
It's a lot of fun, especially if I showed you the back end, because once you see it, you can't unsee it, and you're like, oh, okay, that totally makes sense. I can see this. You can see your apps sitting on top of the OS. You can see the OS and what it contains and what it does. It's clearly labeled and very nicely organized. It's a beautiful system. And if I show you like the systems architecture, it's beautiful too, because you're looking at something that isn't just built, it's designed.
Yeah.
The system is, you've got a front door, you have API management, you've got segmentation, you've got, secure links, you have your hot, cold, and warm data in the appropriate places with multiple locks to be able to, ensure that you've got that security. So when this pushes to your environment, you're not worrying about whether or not you actually did it right. Like, I know that you've probably seen the posts out there with vibe coding and people not really fully understanding, your system architecture and how people don't realize how leaky clouds are and how nasty they are if you really don't understand what you're doing. But we've taken that out of the equation and we've created a standard.
Well, I love that you've found an intersection of doing something that's actual, real, sustainable development that has structure, that has really looked at here's your big picture here, with a considerable amount of experience to do that. And you're addressing a need of, I don't have, 150 software engineers to work on this project. I can't, and I don't have 2 years. I have several months. So now, like I said, I could geek out about, and I seriously want to go review it. And I'm going to like resist the temptation to like just roll up the sleeves and discuss all the technical details, because I want to know more about the journey, that got you here. and what you're seeing from it. Design review is kind of a high level discussion. So you when did you first see, let's talk about like the startup entrepreneurial need that you've identified and that you're focused on with RadHash in its current form. How did that need present itself? How did you like, say, okay, wait, there's like people out there in the world that really need this now? What showed up that said, okay, this is the need, and how did it come to you that that's out there?
So it was kind of a confluence of things, personal things, as a female entrepreneur, and not that I haven't really felt my gender until I started raising, which is a part of the startup ecosystem. So when I started experiencing a lot of the disparities, that were really foreign to me, because one of the features of our DevCo is that we were 100% referral 2 years in, and we never slowed down with work. So I didn't have the biases that, usually come into play. And when I came into the startup ecosystem, and this is part of it, this is only a small fraction of all of the different parts that make the need in the startup ecosystem, or the need to be able to support founders in the way that we support them, evident. And it was, who has access to capital, who's getting meetings. We're only funding certain companies that might have, a certain, potential in the marketplace, when there are so many companies that I can think off the top of my head that don't have the software that they need, that no one's ever going to go into, that they're never going to build to, because they're just not sexy enough. They're not cool enough, for people to want to build in. But there's, a great amount of opportunity and knowledge out there from operators in those spaces. So the idea occurred to me about 3 a.m. I shook my husband awake, and I said, we're going to build the autonomous startup. We're going to take our technology, and we're going to take every single little piece of it, and we're going to make it accessible to people that don't have technical expertise. And we're going to connect it with intelligence. And this is before the LLMs like ChatGPT dropped. It was about 6 months before. And it was really exciting for founders. And the moment that I floated the idea, we were just inundated. This is what happened to me. I hired an agency. I paid all this money. I never got anything out of it. Nothing works. Everything's broken. I don't have any money left, or I'm I'm at the ends of my ropes. I don't know what to do. I've, done all of these things, and, founders were really frustrated because they couldn't get what they needed. And, the, female founders, not feeling comfortable, hiring a tech team, or non-technical founders hiring an agency and basically getting fleeced, not getting their tech, or getting locked out of their tech, or it not working the way that it's supposed to, even with the requirements and everything. They just didn't have the support that they needed. And for me, it seemed really obvious that even though I wanted to go my venture tech ways and just move fast and, churn out a company every 90 days and raise funds and just go, ham on it, that there was actually a bigger calling. And this is what I needed to be doing. I needed to use my knowledge, talent, and skills to be able to bring the technology that I had already invested pretty much everything in, and bring that to founders so that they could bring their ideas and create and innovate the things that they saw without breaking the bank, without going bankrupt, without having to put, everything on credit cards, get loans, borrow from family. Something that was, buildable, sustainable, and something that they could use. And I knew that I had that. And that's why I decided to do RadHash, because it was the way it needed to go.
Well, I really appreciate that story, and it also like underlines like this is how you end up on this program, because you're not in this to go out and build some app that's going to go make somebody $1 million or billion or whatever it happens to be. You're out there to out support people that are trying to do something. And you said the word calling, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this this is why we were supposed to meet, because you're being driven by something higher, and I really appreciate that. In the journey, some things have gone well, some things haven't. Uh, can you give kind of maybe an example of each, of something in your process of building this that's gone really well, and something that, and I read your posts, so I know that you're really open and authentic and vulnerable about the things that are working and not, and I really appreciate that. Share some part of the journey, which I'm betting involves humans.
I think that probably the biggest blessing and the biggest curse happened all at the same time. Is that right after we launched and we were doing our first crowdfund, and we had really ramped really fast, and we had really built a network really quickly, and we had a lot of founders that were signing up and signing LOIs and do all these things. ChatGPT hits, and now all of a sudden, okay, now everyone can build. And right, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't know how long this narrative is going to last. We'll inevitably outlast it. But what is that going to look like on the other side? Like, where are we going to land when suddenly people realize that they need a foundation like Red Hash to be able to build the software that they believe that they're going to be able to build? Because people, when they set out to vibe code their solution, they don't realize that they're going to get a prototype at best, a wireframe maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe they get a pretty design, but there's not really anything behind it. And what there is behind it, they're going to have to move somewhere. They're going to have to hire a team. They're going to have to start exactly where they thought that they were not going to have to start at if they're going to see this thing to fruition. And when people started to figure that out, it was a sigh of relief, because I'm like, okay, you know what? I know from experience that there are always going to be, and I'm not saying that AI is a fad. I think that the concept of being able to build in a vacuum, prompt everything from scratch, is a fad, because it's not something that's sustainable unless you have some type of foundation like Red Hash to give you that framework. But so that was a real kick in the junk. It was just, holy crap, we are just starting our crowdfund, and how are we going to break through this noise? So I just didn't. I just continued with our message. I continued with talking about, what we're building and how it's going to help you and what it's going to do. And now that we're kind of moving to the other side of that, and, I call them citizen innovators, just regular people that want to build tools.
Yeah.
Now that we're on the other side of that, the opportunity is going to be that much sweeter.
Yeah.
But a lot of founders, when black swan events like that come up, they pivot and run or quit or fail, or I don't know whatever it is. They don't dig in. They don't write it out. And I've been through so many of these.
Well, yeah, with 23 years of doing what you're doing, plus the time that led up to that, it's an interesting mix of being on the innovative cutting edge of something, and yet having I'll call it emotional regulation, because that's part of my jam, to just hang out while the world is kind of storming around you, surf those really big waves, and this also giving me a whole lot more perspective on what you're writing about, as things are coming and going. So where is that storm right now? Is this peaking? Is it passing? Is it where are you in this journey of writing out the big disturbance of ChatGPT for all of its blessings and curses?
Okay, I know that you've seen Forrest Gump. So right now, I'm Captain Dan on the top after he basically just told God to go F himself in the storm and didn't die. That's where I am. It feels good. I mean, I'm not going to lie. The thing that keeps me up at night is not the fear of failure, it's the fear of success. It's like, I know what I'm about to push us over the edge on, and what is that going to look like? I've got,
Yeah.
big old brass ones for a girl, but I'll tell you what, when you're like changing something so drastically and you know that what you're about to do, and you know that you're going to do it anyway, regardless of how much it hurts or how much you don't know or how unqualified you are to actually be doing it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like setting sail.
Oh, I hear you loud and clear. And this is what callings do.
Yeah, you don't have a choice.
Um, and my world, engineering your life, is a calling for me. And for somebody who like 7 years ago was borderline atheist, to have a calling show up, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with that? But it only got louder. And so I steered my business as much as I could that way. And then once 25 years with one company, it was amazing. It was lovely. At some point, it's like, okay, to keep doing this, I need to go on my own. Then I'm doing that. And as life comes and goes, as life does, the nice thing about it is it's at least a clear beacon.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going north. Stuff's going to get in my way. Walls are going to get in my way. Earth's going to open up in front of me, but I'm going north. And that's super clear. The rest of my life is this direction. And so I hear you, and there are pitfalls. So so what's the biggest challenge? I mean, like, is there competition? Honestly, I haven't heard of somebody doing what you're doing, but it makes so much sense. I can't believe people wouldn't be.
It's actually something that's really hard to do. Um, and the reason why is that my background makes me uniquely qualified to do it because I built custom software for everything from e-commerce to big, yellow iron auction tech.
Yeah.
And, doctors' offices and lawyers and mom and pops and landscaping companies. And, you have to have a clear understanding
Mm.
of not just building from scratch, but really truly understanding almost in an instant what that business does and where the gaps are. Or you know how to find them
Yeah.
and you know how to find them quickly.
You've lived it. You've been there, and you've been there in
Like
all.
at every single shape and form. And we've taken something from nothing all the way up into multi-million-dollar returns based on a very simple concept that we implemented for the company that we were working with.
Wow,
And if you don't have that experience, you're going to have a really hard time building something that makes sense.
that is really unique and also super resonant for me. I mean, it's an odd metaphor to take software development and mirror it onto personal growth, but I'm gonna.
Yeah.
um,
System building, everything.
yeah,
There's no difference in
yeah.
how a tree comes up or something evolves or
Oh,
it's all
I
natural.
I love this conversation. And yeah, well, that's what I've done. I lived a life of chasing what was wrong with me, and had to learn a lot of lessons and try a lot of things. And I've had a lot of successes along the way, but it took me a very long time to do it. But as a result, I have this huge foundation of understanding, not even at the detail level, but at the system level, and ultimately the highest level system level. So it becomes a spiritual thing. And as a result, I am uniquely positioned to help people that are navigating those waters, because I've done it. So, I get it. I get it. And yeah, that it is rare to have stayed in the game long enough to learn the lessons and then to be able to apply it. So I applaud that. I applaud what you're doing. And so, all right, well, now what? So what's coming? And I'm also like watching time, so we'll end up having, sadly, to bring this down. But this won't be our last conversation. I know that.
Sure was.
So what is the next major step? And while you're at it, who are you looking for? Are you looking for partnership? Are you looking for capital? Are you looking for investors? Are you looking for customers? Where are you at the moment? And this is also a chance to say, hey, if this fits you, we'll get to the point where how they contact you. But what's next?
We're raising capital. We've already built the factory, but there is a completely, it's a completely different animal from building a factory and running a factory. So we have I would say it's probably about a 21-month gap of operational expenses that we need to bridge. So we're raising capital in a pre-seed. We've staged probably enough customers to get us about halfway through our 48-month goal, and we've signed enough LOIs to reach those revenue thresholds that we believe that we can reach. The companies that we're working with, we do have a lot of startups, but the interesting thing is how unique the situation is, that 45% of them are operators who want to build tech for their industry and are bringing their network into it. So they're already generating revenue, which is how we generate revenue. And they already have operating businesses with established customer base. So we're actually pretty lucky. These are companies that didn't just come in because they heard of Red Hash. They came in because I was building Red Hash and they wanted to build with me.
Okay.
So we've created this ecosystem already where we raise the capital, we launch our operations, and then we just start turning them out. And there's probably there's a good 12-month to 21-month gap where we're not really going to be making any money. It's just the way it is.
That's how it is,
Yeah.
So I love that you're getting funding from customers. That would seem to be ideal. But are you also looking for like VC work? What?
We are. We want to. There's actually a strategy behind it, and the strategy is that we look at ourselves as a three-legged stool. When we talk about the startup first, we're talking about a vertical AI ecosystem globally. So your founders, your funders, and your fractional workers. We see this because we have a standard of development and that all of our systems are the same, that instead of having a fixed cost of an engineering crew come in if a founder needs help, they can pull from a network that's already working across the ecosystem to be able to help them with that product or service that they're using. And they'll have access to our ecosystem first, which is over 100 enterprise and individuals across everything from development to marketing to strategy, whatever it is, business building. So they'll have access to that first. And those are the people that we pull from that already know our technology, already know how we work, that have worked with us across projects and things like that. So when I'm going out and looking for capital, yes, it's great that we have customers coming in that are going to, generate that revenue for us. But if we're going to build a network that will then also invest in these companies that are building on our tech, I need to start making those relationships. And those relationships start with me raising first
Okay.
for Rad Hash as an entity.
And
And
so are you looking
yeah,
for what level? I mean, are you only looking for big ticket people who have a nasty tendency to want to take some control and direct your direction, or are you looking for crowdfunding or all of the above? What's it look
we
like?
crowdfunded actually. We did a crowd fund. We actually raised $95,000, and we also did. We brought in a couple angel checks. We collected 85 little of over 85,000, about 87,000 from the crowd fund. There was kind of a blip there where some of the investors didn't get their paperwork in time before it closed, so we lost out on a few funds, which that sucked, which was one of those black swans we're talking about.
Yeah.
But we're actually raising our Reg D, Reg S right now. So Reg D is here in the United States. Reg S is for international investors.
Okay.
It is for accredited investors only, and the minimum is 100,000 to buy in. But we can also help you with an SPV. My partner's a lawyer, and we have a whole gaggle of securities lawyers that we can pull from to help put that together for investors if they want to come in with a group of angels. The only thing that I would say, if you're coming in with a group of angels, we want to know who they are. We're looking for an investor team. We want to know that the people that are coming into this have some strategic value, that
Yeah.
they're going to either open doors or they're going to bring us into their ecosystems, which is part of our go-to-market strategy.
Okay. Well, I now have enough questions to fill an entire other episode, and I'm going to have some restraint here because I'm looking at the clock as we got it. Um, I I'm going to need to wrap it now, but before I do, how do people get a hold of you? How do people reach out to RadHash? What are the ways if somebody's interested in investing, if they're interested in buying in, if they're interested in exploring it? How do people find out about you?
Connect with me on LinkedIn.
Okay. So I'll have your
Uh,
LinkedIn connection
right.
built into this. No problem.
Yeah. So the website's on there. I am really active. If we connect, you'll probably have my cell phone. You can text me if that's more. Um, I'm very digital, but the best way is LinkedIn. And then
Okay.
I also want to be connected with people who, I'm engaging with. I want to see who those people are, what their values are,
Yeah.
and that they're interested, and their interest is really in helping to build this ecosystem up in whichever way that in capacity that they come into it. But there has to be some real value there.
Yeah.
If you want to be a passive investor, that's totally fine too. But I need to be able to reach out to you, which I do often. I will reach out to our investors and say, look, I think that you probably know how to deal with this. So how can you help? Can you help me maybe think through this, or
I
things
really,
like
I
that?
really appreciate that. It's like a community ecosystem in
Hmm.
support of your ecosystem, which supports I love the infinity box model.
Yeah, it's definitely an infinity box. It's
Recursiveness. I love it. The world is fractal.
We
So
build atomically. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. And
yeah.
tomorrow is actually our investor roundup, so I hope as many investors come to that. We basically have a roundtable every month where I invite investors to come in and talk to me.
Well, let's make sure that we have the links for that. Send it to me separately. We'll put that out when we release this episode, and maybe who knows, somebody sees this and they're resonant and want to check it out. It brings me so much joy when these episodes bring people in that would never have seen you otherwise, and so far that's happening. That's part of the kind of the evil plan. Evil. Um, uh, in in summary, you said it before I got to ask you about it, is that you're looking for, alignment, energetic alignment, that the people that are buying in, your customers and your support, you're looking for that. And I will say that is how I live my life. Everyone I deal with is somebody that is trying to uplift other people. And oh boy, it's a wonderful life that I have that as my universe. And I really appreciate, especially in a world that can get super cynical, super results only oriented, and that being bottom line and make somebody a million, whatever. I love that you're doing this from that standpoint. That sure feels sustainable to me. So thank you, Astor, for joining me. This has been absolutely a delight. It has exceeded my expectations.
Well, that's what I like to hear. And I just want to say, because investors are probably watching, hopefully, fingers crossed, we plan on making a mint. So we will, we are not altruistic in that fact. We just see a bigger opportunity to bring in revenue in increments.
Well,
it works.
That and I think that's how it works. Is when you build something that makes sense, then you end up having something that really can sustainably build significant abundance in life. And so I thank you for saying that. This is not altruism. We all have to survive, and there's no reason we can't build a world that benefits everybody, that truly benefits everybody that's putting a time in. Well,
yeah, I mean, if you're going to put the time in, you are going to capitalize on it, and you're going to make connections, and you're going to have the thing that makes it possible for you to have the life that you want.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you again. It has been a delight. And I have a feeling we'll do more.
Absolutely.